Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Road to Real Estate podcast. I'm John. We got, as always, the amazing, the incredible, the unstoppable Lauren Carmani.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I got to step it up every time I introduce you. People don't understand.
Whew.
She's so good.
That went deep. That went deep.
Oh, I know. She's so good. She's teaching a class at our brokerage today. Woohoo!
Yeah, a dubious honor, I'm sure, but yeah, still fun. So thank you, Jonathan. So.
Yeah. Before we get started, we're gonna do the whole like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow, all that fun stuff, and then Lauren wants to talk about something she wants to give away.
Are you ready for summer?
No, I don't have a cooler.
Are you summer ready, Yeti?
Oh.
We have a Roadie 24. So we're going to give it away. There's a link. You're going to click on it. You fill out some information. We will be drawing it just before Memorial Day, right?
Yeah, easy peasy. Mm-hmm. It'll probably get announced right here on this very podcast.
Actually, yeah, we delivered the Nespresso. I need to throw some videos at you or some pictures. We delivered Nespresso. Not only did we deliver it at Dairy Queen. So we got both and an espresso machine. It was like winning twice.
All right, so I take everything nice I said about Lauren back. If you go to Dairy Queen and you don't invite me, you're not my friend anymore. I am a Dairy Queen fanatic.
Okay, so what's your order then? If you're such a Dairy Queen fanatic,
it's not on our menu anymore.
What?
The cappuccino Heath Blizzard is my favorite thing that they make. And then right now I just go with whatever their monthly special is because I go that often.
Yeah, I think I went Turtle Blizzard. Turtle Blizzard is a good solid choice. But if I'm going to pick something from their menu, Peanut Buster Parfait all day long.
Oh, I don't order off of the menu. It's Blizzards only. Another good thing. Look at this. See this? I have a computer, and for everybody out there who doesn't know, I broke my computer right before getting a real estate license, and it's taken me this long to get a new computer. I've been doing everything through my iPad, recording this podcast, doing all my listing stuff, and it's caused some issues. But now I'm a professional, so I'm ready.
You made it.
Now let's get into today's topic. We talked about pricing last week. So this week we are going to do the listing appointment. It's probably outside of building your database, one of the most crucial moments in a real estate person's career when you sit down with a person who's looking to sell their home and they're interviewing realtors to sell their home. So what we're going to talk about today is the stuff you should do to prepare before you go to that listing appointment, how you should present yourself, and the material when you're there with them, and we'll go straight through like that. Do you want to take it away, Miss Lauren?
Yeah, so I think that what you do leading up to the listing presentation is as important as the listing presentation. So just throwing that out there that, we are going to talk about the day of, but there's also the days leading up to it, right? Most of the time, we don't have a listing presentation the very next day. A lot of times we know it's coming, it's happening. We've been talking to somebody, we've been cultivating a lead, or you've been talking to a friend or a sphere, and it's not your first conversation. And so the thing that I'll tell you is once you decide that you are going to have a listing appointment, right? You know you're going to be there. My first thing to say to you would be to ask them to, when is a good time for us to have 15 or 20 minutes so I can find out more information about your house before I get there.
Yeah.
And so that's called pre-qualifying the seller or pre-qualifying the house before the listing presentation. And it's a super important step before you start looking at pricing or looking at the CMA.
I agree. So I did this backwards. I did I reached out to this person. I did talk to him a couple times before we got to the listing appointment. And initially he told me no, the person who just sold his neighbor's house is going to sell his house and da-da-da-da. And understandably, he wanted someone that knew the area very well. And then he ended up calling me like a month or two later going, that person no longer does real estate. So would you like to be my realtor? So then I very quickly put together a CMA and everything else and did the purchase history on it. And I didn't ask him a lot. And I walked into his house going, hey, man. And I walked in with I put myself in his shoes, which you shouldn't do. You're not the person selling the home, but I knew where he purchased at and where things were selling in his neighborhood. So I went in there thinking, I just don't know how to get a good compensation for this without making this person bring out his checkbook when they go to closing. You know what I mean? And so I went in like, well, man, I know you're close, so I was already down to 2.5% before I even got. I was already lowering my bar, and I hadn't even talked to him before. I didn't know his financial situation. I didn't, and that's not so much about the presentation listing, but understand that when you're going into this, you're assisting them with moving their property, and you don't know their exact financials, and it's not for you to worry about so much, because I already went in like, I should do this and that, and then maybe if I do this for you, we can, and I don't want to say belittled myself, but I definitely cut myself on every corner I could trying to get my first listing. Let's be honest. So there was that too. I really wanted a listing, and so.
Well, I mean, it's true, right? I mean, we get all tied up sometimes in the story, and our job as the agent is not the story. Our job is, we say tell the weather, right? It's the facts. It's the information. It is typically somehow emotional when a seller sells. Maybe they're excited for where they're going. Maybe they're not excited. It's a transition. There are emotions involved for the seller, and it's important that we keep ours in check. That
yes,
we
of
are
course.
Just coming in to just tell the information, and they can use that information, however they need to in order to get to wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for being so vulnerable. That was pretty vulnerable, Jonathan.
Oh no, it's just I don't consider it vulnerable. It's just the facts. I think most of us get in there and we put ourselves in their shoes and start going through the process instead of like we're supposed to be the part that is on their team trying to keep the emotion out of it and make this a business transaction and do its best for the client without putting yourself through that. And I think that was, I don't want to say it's my mistake, but it's real easy to do, especially when someone's purchased recently and where they paid and where the market is, and it's like, how do we make them? Because no one wants to show up to a closing table with a checkbook. So
not a good feeling. Well, and it's important to know because at this point in our market, we did hit the top. 6 months ago, a year ago, depending on where you are, and people that might need to sell sooner than later may not have built up the equity that we have seen or the pre-COVID prices, right? And so we don't always know that somebody has equity. We don't always know that somebody minds bringing a checkbook, right? These are assumptions that we are bringing to the closing or bringing to the listing appointment that may or may not be true. And so it's a really good point to kind of clear your mind. Don't make those assumptions. And that's why having a seller questionnaire and just asking the questions straight out. One of the hardest things, I think, when I first started was just asking the questions without adding emotion to them or adding judgment to them or feeling nervous about asking them. Because the reality is you can help your client by knowing, hey, what's your payoff?
exactly.
Right?
If I would have just asked more.
What's your social security number and da-da-da. No, you're saying, hey, what's the payoff? How can we make sure that we, get that covered? And, putting a little buffer in there because sometimes people don't know. And we assume that they know things. And so we gotta put it in there. So a pre-qualification call. You're gonna be the seller, Jonathan. So yeah, congratulations. So hey, Jonathan, thanks for seeing me in a couple days about selling your house. I have a few questions to go over. I want to make sure that I have the best information about your house. So You said this was a good time. You still have like 15 minutes to talk to me?
I do.
Okay, great. And then did you gather your mortgage statement and any other documents you have about the house or that you had at your closing?
I did. I couldn't find my original warranty deed, though.
That is okay. You don't need that today. And then I'll go through and I'll... so, Jonathan, is it correct that you and your wife are both on the deed?
We are, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So when we go to list, I'll need to have both you guys there at the listing presentation. So Tuesday at 6 p.m., can you guys both be there?
Yes.
Great, because I can't list your house unless you both sign and both agree on it. And so we'll have to have both of you there. We're going to go through a couple of things about the house. Can you tell me how many bedrooms and bathrooms? I saw it was 4 bedrooms, 5 bath on the MLS. Is that still correct?
It's actually 2 baths. Someone made a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, good. 2 baths. That'd be a big difference in price, right?
Well, I mean, I don't have more bathrooms than bedrooms.
Well, I mean, maybe. Who knows? Going through that, what's the age of your water heater? I'm going to go through a few questions, Jonathan. You don't have to answer all these. What's the age of your water heater? Tell me about your kitchen. Do you love your Formica countertops from the 70s, right? Or do you have the newest types of granite? Do you say granite or do they say quartz? Mm-hmm. Because we are at this weird point where even though you might have a granite or a stone countertop, that doesn't necessarily mean it's updated. Because if you updated in the 2000s, I'm about to drop some knowledge on you, okay, guys? I'm going to get in close here. If you updated in the 2000s, you are now 25 years old.
Yeah.
That is no longer updated.
We're getting old quick, everybody.
And so, oh, great, you have stone countertops. What kind of stone countertops, right? Are they quartz? Are they granite? What color are they? Asking those kind of things. What about your sink? Is it undermounted? These tell us price point.
Yeah.
How's your master bathroom? What does it look like? When did you update it last? Did you update it last? Is there carpet in the bathroom? There's a few things that you can kind of, key into if something is not great. When was the last time you painted? Do you have any wallpaper? Did you install the wallpaper, aka maybe newer, or was it there when you moved in? What improvements have you made since you moved in? Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, you're getting building a feel for the home itself.
Yeah. Tell me about your flooring. Is it in good condition? Is it the same flooring? There's increase in price when you have like similar flooring throughout the house, typically. All hardwoods on the main level compared to, there's carpet in this room, tile in this room, hardwood in that room, and then laminate in that room. So if there's more than 2 or 3 flooring types, you kind of want to listen for that. Tell me about your basement. Do you have a basement? Is it finished? Is there a bathroom in there? These are all different price point things that make a difference that you may not be able to see from past listings. How's your yard? Is it a giant mud pit? Do you have beautifully manicured Bermuda grass that's 2 inches high, like our Georgia curb appeal standard? What does it look like? And then also, what else are you planning to do? You know that somebody's on top of it when they talk about things like pressure washing the house and the driveway before we list.
Yeah.
That they are really, when they say something like, I've scheduled my cleaners to come right before photos, right? They're really, really ready. Is there something, do you need to think about storage? Do you need a pod, right? Pods are one of these things they deliver to your driveway and you can fill it with stuff. Do you need something like that? Where are you on the decluttering phase? These are just different questions to ask. Now, like Jonathan said, what's your payoff? Are you gonna be able to clear with equity? Like, what's your expectation? I do sometimes ask them what they think their list price will be.
I was going to ask you that because do you get into that, or do you wait till you have the CMAs in front of them and you're sitting down to kind of put a reality check on them, or based on how they answer, okay, this is where they're at, but when you do the CMAs, how far off they are.
Yeah, I mean, their expectation doesn't change my number. However, it informs me as where their brain is at. And naturally you're thinking, everyone thinks their house is more expensive. But not everybody does. You'll be really surprised. There are some people who really lowball and undervalue their house.
Especially if they bought a while ago and they don't understand how much the market has changed if they haven't kept their eye on it,
Or if they don't like their house. Some people that don't like their house, they think it's worth less money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's also a question that's really interesting, like how much do you want to clear? Right? Like what is the check that you would like to leave with? And some people will joke and say, $1 million or just make a joke. But in reality, they have thought of a number that will help them to get to the next place. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that number is not realistic.
Oh yeah, I went through that literally yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We had he has a number in his head, and we had a cash offer this weekend, and their number was the same, except for the buyer was subtracting another 2.5% for their compensation, except for they're unrepresented, they're buying for themselves. So they were taking that off the price, and like they were saying, well, if I had a realtor, you would, if I was at this price, it would be down to here anyways. And he was like, no, I'm at that price, but that's because I'm taking a 2% off of this number. So they were 2.5% off each other, and they could not. One wouldn't come up and one wouldn't come down, and they were like, we are at 2.5%, guys. Come on, we can do this. And so we couldn't do it. We couldn't get through. There was no movement on either end. So, but yeah,
it's tight. Well, and that's important to know what that expectation is, right?
Yeah.
For example, yesterday I went into my listing presentation, and we talked through price, we talked about through sales price. They were on board, they understood all of it. They actually did have a lot of equity. They bought around 2017, 2018, so they had a lot of equity. Their house has basically doubled in price, but they still had a number that they wanted to clear that wasn't realistic.
Oh.
So when we went through, we did all the numbers, they were going to walk away with about $250,000, right? Check. $250,000, which is great. That's fantastic. That's, they made it. Congratulations, right? Like, that's normally a really happy
Usually sounds great.
number. Yeah. However, when we put that in, I said, hey, so how does that feel? And he said, well, it feels a bit low. And I said, oh, what's your number? What were you expecting? He said, I really want it closer to 300,000. And I said, well, and I just kind of did the math backwards. I said, yeah, in order to get there, we'd have to list your house for about $50,000 to $60,000 higher, and the chances of actually getting that are pretty.
Yeah, getting an offer.
And he said, yeah, now that you put the numbers in front of me, I understand it. So what numbers did I put in front of him? We're going to kind of jump ahead for this, because this will be part of your prep for what you need to know. Did you want to say something first, Jonathan?
No, I agree. I mean, this is all going to come out with basically what we talked about last week when we do our CMAs and really know what the market is doing. It's really important to know the market in that neighborhood, comparable stuff that's currently on the market or recently sold within the last 6 months. We go in great detail about that last week. So it's worth watching that episode. For the CMA section of this, we're going to do it very brief. But basically...
No, I'm not going to do the CMA part right now. I'm going to do I'm going to talk to you about what numbers you have to have ahead of time before you, so that you can help them figure out what their bottom line is.
Yeah. Okay.
So this could be different in your state. So just realize that we are in the state of Georgia, and this is how sellers are charged here in the state of Georgia. There are some similarities as far as like HOA and insurance being billed, for your portion of your ownership. So when you think about the numbers for the person, you need to think about what time of year it is, and if taxes have been paid, because their portion of the taxes will be due. So right now we are in April. So this particular seller will be in the house, January through May. So the first 5 months of the year. So they will have not paid taxes. In Georgia, we send out a tax estimation bill sometime between April and July. And then taxes are due sometime around October, November in most counties. And so what that means is that I know that taxes have not been paid, but yet he's been paying towards his taxes in his mortgage every month.
Yeah, of course.
Mortgage company.
And the escrow.
In an escrow. Yeah. But you're still going to need to pay part of that at closing. So I need to think about, okay, what is his insurance? What does that look like? What do the taxes look like? So these are extra numbers that I expect him to have to pay at closing. So for insurance has gone up wildly in the past few years. So you have to be a little bit careful estimating insurance, especially if you don't know it. For a typical house, I'm estimating around $2,000 a year for Georgia. Like I said, Florida might be different. California, not touching.
It's like $5,000 in Florida.
not touching where you're different, but where we are, an average house, somewhere around 2,000 is a good estimated number. I don't have to be perfectly right, and so 5-6 months of time, equals $1,000. So I put $1,000 in there for taxes. So taxes are different everywhere. I'm sorry if you're up north, but our taxes are somewhere around 1% of the house value. It's not a steadfast rule. If it's an investor, if they don't live in it, it's definitely higher. If they have a senior discount, it's definitely lower. But I want to look at the taxes for what they were for last year. And like I said, he's at 5 or 6 months. He's at 5 months, hopefully, when we sell. But I'm going to estimate for 6 months so that we'll be in the ballpark when we get to closing. And so half of that, is what I want to tell him. So about 0.5% of what we expect the house to sell for. And that may be a little bit high, but the reality is that we won't have the actual tax number until after closing. And in the state of Georgia, if you get the taxes wrong, the buyer can go back to the seller and say, hey, you owe me $20. You owe me $100. You owe me more money because the taxes were higher. And so you can actually go back and fix that. So I want to kind of overestimate that and create that. So I know the tax number, I know the insurance, and then I also HOA. We talked about the HOA. Do you have an HOA? How much is it? When is it due? Are you behind? Do you have any little nasty grams from your HOA? What does that look like? HOAs are very powerful in Georgia.
Yeah.
And they can put liens on your houses, and they can do all kinds of things. So you want to know ahead of time. It was
they seem to be growing in every state. Like they just take up more and more, and everyone I talk to doesn't like them. So
yeah, well, it depends. It also keeps your property value up, right? It keeps your neighbor from painting the house neon green or purple or something that could bring down your value. It creates a conformity, and if you have been in any kind of real estate classes, the principle of uniformity can actually increase.
Yes, of course.
Because you're all around the same price. But it also holds it in it also holds it in a tighter range as well. So there can be some positives for it. And normally there's a swim and tennis and some other things. We do see that new construction almost always has HOAs now.
Oh, yeah. Some kind of covenants and restrictions and stuff upon the build. And yeah.
You almost always find it new construction. So HOA, finding out that information, when is that due, how much is it, that kind of thing. And then the other number is I just put in $1,000 on top of whatever I decide for the seller to just give us a little cushion at closing. Sellers don't traditionally pay a lot of fees for closing costs. It is a buyer's, the buyer is the one who buys, and pays for the closing attorney in Georgia. But that could be different in your state, so make sure to figure out what that is.
Yeah, market dictates that as well. I mean, if it was a buyer's market instead of a seller's market, then they get more power, and some of that stuff switches over just to get out from under house. Sometimes sellers will pay the closing costs and stuff. That's all negotiated, and your market's really going to kind of help dictate what happens during that contract purchase. So let's say you've done all your research, you've got everything done. You've got your comparative market analysis. You've already kind of given them an estimation on their taxes and insurance and everything else, so what they're going to owe at closing. All estimates. It's important to say it's all estimates.
Yeah.
So those will change. Now it's time. You've already set up your meeting to meet them. You're now sitting down in front of them. You have your presentation ready. What do you bring to your presentation? And this one, I don't know how you do it. But what I did is I emailed all we call them CYA documents before the presentation, so I didn't have 8 million pamphlets of information to hand them. I was like, I'm going to send you over some stuff to get you ready for the presentation. And that was like the radon and what to expect as a seller. And we call them the CYA, or if we're going to be more PG, CYBs, cover your butts. Pamphlets, so that way I have less to show off when I sit down. How do you do that?
So I have two different ways. It depends on if the person knows me or not. If the person knows me, I typically do not do this, especially if they're a past client. This was a past client. We did help him to buy this house, so I already knew him. So this particular time I did not do this. But I have a listing presentation that has our team on it, my face on it, our information, our statistics. It's a pre-listing packet. It says nothing about the house. It does all the selling about our team. And I have it, in the, back to high school plastic report cover with a little spine on it. It looks nice, printed well. And then I will drop that off, especially if it's a new person, because I say, hey, here's some information about me. So when we have our listing presentation, I can spend the whole time talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll drop that off ahead of time, and then I ask them if they've seen it. It's about 50-50. If they are a type C, kind of that accountant particular personality, then they have read every single page of it, and they know all my statistics better than I do. If they are that, which is less than 20%, that's a small percentage of the population, that accountant, very particular, they want every detail. If they are an S or an I personality, the I is not going to have read it. They're going to have flipped through the pictures and enjoyed the pictures. The D may have read it. They may have They may have looked at the first page, said, "Oh, thanks," and put it down. But then the S personality will also read it, and they will find comfort in knowing me better. So I think that having that information there ahead of time, it lets me not sell myself when I'm there about my statistics and like how much we've sold and what we can do and what our process is. So day of, fast forward, I have a folder with the CMA, and then I print out the buyer's version of the document that our MLS provides. It's called a buyer's sheet. And then I will print out the pictures that go along with that one. Now, in conjunction, I also have my iPad Pro. I have like the big iPad and my laptop with me. Both of them are loaded up with the same properties because I don't know who I'm going to see nowadays. Sometimes people want to see it digitally and they want to, make the picture bigger and zoom in, and they have lots of questions about those pictures. Other times they don't want to. Yesterday, we did not even sit down. The whole listing presentation was done standing up. And so having the paper copy as a backup was great because these guys are, she was probably under 30. He was probably early 30s. I really thought that they would want to, look at the picture on the iPad and swipe, swipe, swipe. And they did not. They wanted the paper because it was faster. He just wanted to get it done, get it done, get it done, which told me he was a type D. So I had all that CMA on one side of the folder. I have the CYA, CYA documents on the other side. I explain very, very light reading if they want to get through those 100 pages of disclosures.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a thick book nowadays.
So you print that out, huh?
I do.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, emailing is fine. You knew your client really well. This wasn't a newer person.
Yeah.
But
I just find it's a lot of paper. So for me, it's like, I mean, obviously it's going to depend on personality types. And so I even set them in separately so they can tackle one versus having 8 million attachments in one file. You know what I mean? I wanted it easy to go in, and I wanted them to consume it over time because I feel like if I sent all these at once, they're going to blame me. It's 100 pages of reading material. I'm not going to do it. And whereas if I had a couple here and a couple there and a couple there in separate emails, like, oh, read that. They read 20 pages, no big deal. Oh, here's another 20 pages, no big deal. Like make it consumable. Because I know if you hand me a packet like that, I'm like, I'm just going to sign these documents. Let's move on.
Well, that's the thing about these kind of documents. I mean, if you want to point out why they're important, you definitely can. I have sat down and gone over them with people, especially somebody like a first-time home buyer. I feel like that for buyers, some of those packets are way more informative. Right? They're very educational. A seller, most of the time, bought their home, right? Sometimes you inherit it, sometimes they buy it. But most of the time you bought your home, so you have a little more knowledge around it. And so I'm not as concerned when it's the seller. But with the buyer, things like protect yourself when you buy in an HOA, they may not know that information. And so that may be something I kind of go through and highlight and
that makes sense.
Really show them. Yeah.
Well, I've been living here for 20 years. What do you mean lead-based paint and radon? Oh, no.
My windows from 1950. No.
Gotta stop chewing on my windowsills.
Yeah.
At what point do you bring up marketing trends and your plan? Is that like you've done your presentation, you do that in the middle of that, or you wait till the end to tell them what you're going to do for them?
So here's my presentation. So first I walk in and I see the house. Right?
Yeah.
I want to see the house. When I first started in real estate, they wanted you to like leave the seller at the kitchen table and you walk around by yourself, and that works. That's not bad. However, I would say, hey, can you give me like the 5-cent tour? Right.
It's more relaxing and calming that way for sure.
The like super tour. I do not want to be there for 30 minutes looking around the house. And I'll walk in front of them and I'll walk faster. Not that I don't care, but I'm trying to keep it to less than 15 minutes. That can really elongate. If I can keep it under 15 minutes, then my listing presentation goes much faster. we're professionals. We've all been in houses before. I can guess a floor plan when I walk in the door, and I'm pretty good at being right at it. So I'm not really. I'm more categorizing what the floor plan is. I'm seeing, okay, is this above or below what I expected? Because when I do my presentation or when I do my CMA, I have a range. And depending on what I see when I'm there, I can increase or decrease that range.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's smart. I'll be honest. I walked in the door, and the person I had was meticulous. I looked around. I went, "Okay, everything's immaculate. We're good." Like, I didn't even take the 5-cent tour until I talked to him. Like, I've talked to him. We started doing the CMA and stuff. I'm like, you know what? Let's see how things are upstairs. And he took me upstairs, and it's exactly as I expected. They're okay. Yeah,
Well,
you're
and
good.
you know sometimes, and other times you don't know. I remember this one house; it was very clean on the first floor. Everything looked good, and then I went upstairs, and they let their kids do whatever they wanted. I mean, there was so much stuff in the carpet. I was like, what even is this? Like, it was like a rainbow in the carpet. I'm like, what did you do? And crayon all over the walls, and they just let the kids like live upstairs in a way that I was never allowed to live.
That's called defeated, Lauren. That's defeated.
Yeah. I was like, what is happening? Yeah. And so I was really surprised about that house. You want to be careful. Are there any smells? Are they? Do they think you don't know they're a smoker? Do they have a cat and not know that their house smells like cat, or a dog, or kids? We live in a melting pot. Sometimes we go in and you can smell what culture somebody is based on the food that
The way they cook and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I don't think that increases or decreases the value of the house necessarily.
But it may turn off a buyer unless you can neutralize that to make sense.
Or yesterday when I drove up to the house, they had a very strong political message at the front of the
There's
house.
a lot of that these days.
Very strong political message. And I said, hey, I believe whatever you want to believe. I have no bearing on that. However, when it comes time to list, this needs to be gone. And
It can't be in all the photos we're about to take.
in the photos. And so it's just one of those things where, you have to just be aware of what you see. The other thing is, it's not my job to make them feel great. Okay?
I think that's where I make a mistake most, because I'm a people pleaser by nature, and I was like, I want them to be happy with everything I'm telling them. Bringing the bad news is the hard part.
Well, it's hard, and you know what? I am a recovering people pleaser myself. You know this about me, and so it is hard. But the reality is, sometimes it's important to make people feel a little uneasy, not because you're trying to make them feel awkward, but because they need to realize, hey, me looking at this giant purple stain on your white carpet feels a little bit awkward, but when people come in and ask you to replace it, and you are blindsided because I told you it was no big deal, then I haven't done my job.
That's
right?
fair.
And so, or if I don't ask, like, hey, what's that? I see a stain in the ceiling. What's that from? If I don't ask things like that, then I'm going to be blindsided.
Doing your both of you a disservice. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not that I'm trying to be judgmental or picky. I need to pick apart the house to figure out what the buyers are going to ask so that I have an answer for it. Because if that, you know what, we got our roof fixed last year, insurance paid for it, all brand new roof, we had a small leak, it's all good. Okay, great. Paint that.
Yeah. Don't leave that like that.
Get rid of it. Because they solved the problem, but they didn't get rid of the evidence.
Yeah, of course.
And so
it's going to be in a disclosure anyways, where it should be,
Yeah, we're not trying to hide it, but we are trying to say, we're not trying to create an alarm when there shouldn't be one either. And people live in their houses. I do the same thing in my house. Like, you don't see your own surroundings.
Mm-hmm. You get complacent and you get used to the way you live, and then...
Especially with carpet, like, people don't realize how much wear their carpet has a lot of times, or walls. Like, hey, there's a lot of scuffs on here. We need to spruce this up. And so you just kind of walk around. You're just making little notes. You're just thinking about it. You're just, and I always have my my notebook. I always have my notebook with me, and I'm just for anything that needs to be done, because I don't want to forget. at the beginning of the tour, at the end of the tour, they're going to be talking the whole time, and you just need to make sure that you record all of that information down so that you don't forget it later on. And this is your first impression typically of the house. That is how buyers will also see it. And so what you're experiencing is similar to how the buyer will experience it, assuming they don't do a lot of stuff before you actually go on the market. So after we do that, so we do the quick tour, we ask the questions. My favorite, because sometimes not saying something creates sometimes all I have to do is look and go, oh. And then they tell me the story. Right?
That's a judgmental oh.
Yeah. Or, that's like a,
What can you tell me?
Yeah,
I got you.
Just the face, just a pursed lip.
Yeah, that makes sense. People they're excited to know the reaction. I mean, most people walk into that situation proud and ready to sell their home. And when they start to see someone's reaction, it's like a reality check for sure. Like, oh, okay, this doesn't show the way I thought it was going to show. How do you feel about people that do the full stage when it comes to a listing? Like, hey, listen, maybe the way they have kept their furniture and stuff. When do you suggest, hey, like before we go to the market, we should probably do these updates, and maybe we should switch some of the stuff around so that your house shows well, because you have a nice structure. It's just not showing the way it probably should. When do you tackle that? I mean, because usually that comes with a price tag.
Right. So if that's something I'm going to offer, and if they're open to it, right? Not every client is open to that, right? You went to a house that was immaculate, and so you could offer updates, but that probably was not the position he was in to put more money into something he was trying to get out of. Other people are like, yeah, I've lived here for 20 years. I know that I probably need to do something to get my equity out, and they're more open to it. So you have to kind of figure out if they're open to it and if it's needed.
Yeah.
Right? If you walk in and you see that Formica countertop and you say, oh, 1952 was a great year, but we probably need to change out these, maybe the cabinets, maybe the countertop. You can talk about price versus cost, right?
Yeah, if it's worth doing.
Increase your price, right? The value of the house and what you would expect, because we're in a little bit of a tight market right now. And if you can get more money, but you're going to need to make sure that you cover that cost. Dollar for dollar isn't going to.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it may cost us $1,000 to do that, but this update brings us $2,000. It's worth doing. Versus, hey, people are going to want this. It's going to cost, and it's going to change your value none.
And when I think about what are the most cost-effective things to do, paint, carpet, or flooring in general, right? I mean, carpet's probably still the cheapest flooring that we have available outside of like a vinyl, but LVP is not that expensive. You can get good-looking LVPs for not too expensive. You can also get LVP that is very expensive. More than hardwood.
Oh yeah, that waterproof kitchen lifetime warranty. Turns out it's about the same price as real wood.
The difference is the labor to put it in is a little bit cheaper, but still, it's still a little pricey. And there's a lot of options, and so you have to know if people are open to it. And which is, part of that pre-listing qualification. And then staging is something that I do essentially with every home. It's just a matter of, I call it, I don't always use the word staging. We talk about, we want to make sure to prep your house for photos.
Yes.
Photos are so important. We live and die by photos right now. If people don't get past the photos, then they will never get past your threshold or your doorway, right?
They'll never even make it there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the magic ingredient. People don't go, oh, these photos are terrible. Let's go see it anyway. That's very seldom the client. Right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And actually, the agents are not going to encourage that either, because if it's that bad, the agent doesn't want to waste their time either. So you have to get through photos. So I talk about it like being photo ready. How is this going to look online? How are buyers going to see this? And so as we talk through, after we talk about the house, after we do the tour, that's where we kind of talk about like, hey, are you open to doing some things? Because that can change the value also. And then we can add that in. Or what are you planning to do before we list? That's normally my first question. And then going through, and if I know that like these guys, they were in the process of painting and cleaning up some things, and they had done a really good job on most of it, but there was definitely a door in the kitchen. It was like those double doors that had some water damage on the bottom. And I just kind of mentioned it, like, hey, this, I can see there's some damage here. He said, yeah, but it's going to cost too much to fix that door. This is where I'm done. I don't have any more money to put into the house after this. And so, I respect it. That was his line. But at the same time, I said, okay, this may come up in an inspection, so let's just keep it in mind. That
yes, of course.
Comes up, we're ready to fix it. Right?
Yeah, may have to take it off at the back end.
Mm-hmm. So it's not that I'm forcing him to, right? He showed me where his line was. He had already painted the interior of the house. He's pressure washing the exterior. He removed an old chain link fence, was putting up a new, this has been kind of a conversation we'd been having the whole time. So I knew what he was planning to do, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are times where I feel like houses need to be staged. And so I have a stager that I work with. I do basic staging. Mm-hmm. Right? No problem. I can do basic staging. When I get to like a higher level of staging, I have two different stagers. One stager works with the stuff you have in the house and moves it around and will make suggestions like, hey, that light fixture is really bringing down this room. Here are 3 you could choose from. You don't buy them from her, buy them anywhere. But here are 3 you can choose from that'll help that. I do a little bit of that if needed, but also she does that. When it comes to this kind of staging, what we do is we ask that the seller pay the initial deposit, and then we reimburse them at closing. So we will pay for the first 2 hours of staging. If they want any more past that, they have to pay for it, and we reimburse it at closing.
Okay.
So we have a stager. Now we have a different stager that comes in for empty houses. She has all of her furniture. She has a warehouse. That's great for model homes. It's great for higher end homes. Her pieces look wonderful. She's always updating them, and she has a mover. She'll move them in. She'll move them out. They're a very professional, really great business. And so there are times, especially with higher end homes, where I need that kind of staging, and I have them. And then the third option is virtual staging. Virtual staging is something that you do after you've taken photographs.
And I can't stand it, I'll be honest.
You can't stand it? Is that what you said?
I cannot stand virtual staging. I can see it and go, that's fake. I've never seen virtual staging where I'm like, oh my God, that looks so good. To me, it's like, give me a big empty room or real furniture. I know times are changing. Maybe I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but man, I tell you. I don't like it at all. My big thing was lighting. Before we took photographs and stuff, when I was talking to my guy, I was like, all right, you've got cool lights here, warm lights here. I can see both cool and warm in the same room. I'm like, let's go to Home Depot and let's make sure we get all these on the same. I was like, if you prefer warm, do them all warm. If you prefer cool, we ended up going with like a 3700K, which is a nice neutral light. And I just get it all on the same, because that way we're not, I don't like the hues on everything where this feels blue and that feels yellow. And so we found a nice neutral light, and we just bought enough to do the whole house, get everything on the same light.
That's a great point, Jonathan. We did the same thing yesterday. Yeah. It drives me crazy when you walk in one room and everything's like gold and yellow, and the next room everything's like white. And so, it's hard to get that feeling of consistency in the photographs without it. And so that's a really great point. So we did the same thing yesterday. And you can even find old incandescent bulbs. They said they weren't going to sell them, but you can still find them. Walmart, Home Depot, Amazon, pick your favorite retailer. There's, you can find a variety of lights in different hues. So, great point. And making sure that all the light bulbs are on and bright. The only light bulb that I do not encourage are the older compact fluorescents that take time to warm up. There's something about when you walk in the house and you turn on the light and it's slow to warm up that it doesn't show well. And so I do not let sellers use those kind of bulbs, because that kind of weird moment in every single room where it's trying to light up, it can be interpreted very differently. And so I try to do whatever we can to avoid the creepy vibe.
Let's switch everything to LED, man. You
As much
can
as you
get an
can.
LED to replace every fluorescent bulb, and it doesn't have that same effect, you know.
No, that's good. I also walk around, and when I'm talking to the people, we want to look at pictures, right? Are your, I want to protect children and families and whoever you have in your house more than anything. I don't care if it's your dog or your kid or your grandma. We want to make sure that what you want to keep private is still private. So we do talk about removing photographs, and part of that is you don't want them to have the feeling of you in the house. They need to feel the feeling of themselves in the house, right?
Well,
So
that's something I've also gone through a lot this last couple of weeks, getting one of my buyers under contract. Every house we went into, unless it was vacant, no one put away their photographs. And so when we get out of the house, every time we got out of the house, my buyers were like, "So it looks like she's a single mother," and like they were into figuring out the story of the person who lived there, why they were selling, and they had this. They would just they weren't going through their things, but like just seeing the photographs and everything else, and noticing like, "Hey, we just noticed that this is so and so's room, and this is Charlie's room we're in," like because they were putting it together in their heads, and it was just one of those things. It's like, wow, they really pay attention to all that stuff, and so not having it there makes them focus on the property itself.
100%. Because what they've done is they've created a narrative, and they have
Yeah.
made it someone else's house. Without knowing it, they have not put themselves in that house because somebody else was already there.
Yeah.
So removing photographs, anything that's anything that feels like you, even like super specific design choices. Like sometimes it goes with the room and it needs to stay, but you don't need to have. This is not your time to display your life, right?
Oh yeah, I know.
If you
And
have
more,
a lot of expensive artwork, maybe you don't put it out. Maybe you go ahead and pack it away. Also, guns,
yeah,
any kinds of weapons. You might be, I don't know.
we looked at a house like that. Remember, we went to that hunter's house and there was guns everywhere.
Yeah, like you just don't want that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's terrible. And so, yeah, so guns. I also see swords, samurai swords sometimes, and like things mounted on the wall. You need to just get rid of that. It's just not a place. It's just not the place for it.
It actually cost them an offer, and they called and that was the thing is they went through, they built a narrative in their head. They went, okay, we know the living situation. We haven't seen a dad at all, and there was a lot, and it was like no insult to this person, but there was so much stuff in the house like for the child, which is fine, but it was just a lot. And so it got to the point where they were in their heads, they were like, listen, there's no way this person can close when we need to close. And I said, well, that's not up to you. If you want a house, we can put an offer in on this house, and if they sign a contract for them to be gone by this date and they sign it, then they have to abide to that contract. And they're like, we don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
And so we're not wasting our time. And so like because there was a little bit too much clutter, too much stuff, and the fact that they looked at the pictures and saw that it was a single mother, like there's no way she can pack this up by herself in the time that we need to move in. Even though, we're over a month in terms of time to closing with them, they just thought this isn't possible.
Yeah.
And I was like,
It happens.
you don't have to do that. That's not your problem, know?
Like
So,
people
but
say
it was enough
I
for
hear
them
that
to
all
go.
the time, Jonathan. Like, oh yeah, they won't be able to get out of here in this time period.
Yeah,
I hear
and
it
so
all the
because
time.
of that, it cost them. And they recently reached out last week saying, "Hey, we reduced the price. We still is there any interest? Do you like?" And it's because of the way that house shows that they're going through that situation. Because people are going in there and looking at it and going, "How's this person going to move out? What's going to be left behind when they're gone?"
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the next point. I have like the my tips for sellers. 50% of what's in your closet needs to be packed up and out of there. On your counter spaces, the kitchen, you can have 5 things on your kitchen counter. Coffee maker, microwave, like only 5 things. The whole kitchen.
I think this might be the first time I disagree with you. I don't think you should have anything.
Oh, yeah.
I also, yeah, oh yeah.
Well, 5 is the max, not the minimum.
Because
right?
it also
And so
depends on
people
the
don't need
size
it.
of your kitchen.
Yeah.
because you want it to feel open and empty. You really do. You
Yeah,
know.
every counter space cleared off, the tops of dressers cleared off, pictures are gone. We're in a time where we have to tell people even prescription medicines, do not leave them in your house,
Yeah.
right? We do our best to make sure people don't go through things, but
Well, Matthew Perry used to go through. It's not Matthew Perry, the guy from Friends. Is it? Did I get the right name? Yeah. He openly talked about going into open houses to steal medication. It's a thing.
yeah,
So.
it's a thing. So put away that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely if it's like we're coming into like the spring, summer months right now, I tell people take all your winter clothes, pack them up. You're not going to use them again until you're in your new place. Pack them up. Get rid of them. You know, the more you can declutter, the better the house is going to show. So when we're sitting down talking about like how to show, we go through that. So we walk through the house, we sit down, we do the CMA, we talk numbers, and then we talk about like what they need to do and marketing. And so a lot of times what they need to do is going to come last because we're not going to have the full price discussion until the very end, and it's going to make a difference of what they're going to do. So marketing, we talk about how we're going to market, right? This is where we say, hey, Jonathan, did you read the packet I dropped off? You know, and
They'll say I glanced at it.
yeah. Half of them, and some of them will have questions. Some of them have no idea where they put it. And the point is that, is that, okay, well, the one thing I have in there, it talks about my marketing plan. That, we want to make sure that when you hit the market, you're 100% ready, that you're going to go viral, that we want to create this organic interest online. We're going to work hard ahead of time. Photographs coming soon, open houses, but I'm going to need your help in making sure the house is ready to go. We're a partnership here. We're going to be communicating all the time. We talked about how showings are done. We use Showing Time in Georgia, and Showing Time is an automated software where they just receive a text message and can approve or deny the showing. We just talk through those things. We talk through open houses. We talk about the time period that they, everything. So, hi, Devonna. I'm assuming. No.
Her name's Marilyn.
Okay, guys.
I'm going to make
Jonathan's
sure
wife,
she listens to this episode.
I know. Jonathan's wife and my friend, I became friends with them at the same time, and they're both named after states. One is named Maryland, one is named Nevada, and I have to shout out because it was just Nevada's birthday, so she is on my mind. Her birthday was this week, so
Speaking of birthdays, yours is in like a couple days.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Oof. So sorry. Oh my goodness. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah, cut that out, Jonathan. You ready?
No, I'm leaving it. It's part of what this podcast is about.
Yeah, so I don't even know where my train of thought was there. Yeah, and so then at the end, what are you willing to do that helps increase the price? And so that's where we talk about, how to prep for the photographs, how to prep for showing, how to prep for going on the market. And what are they willing to do? What are they willing to not do?
Yeah.
Where do they draw the line?
That's going to have a huge determination on your final price, too, because if you sit down and it needs a lot of work, and if you'll get the buyers that say, hey, you know what? As is. We're not doing anything. You're getting it the way it comes. This is where we are. And that can hugely affect how the house shows. And so when do you make that decision, like, I'm going to go ahead and take this listing, or do you walk away from that listing? What is your big determiner in that? Like,
yeah.
What are your red flags?
So if you're an asshole.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Do not want to work with assholes. And if you are like badgering me the whole time and pushing me and not being nice, then that's not something I want to be a part of. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it could be a long, arduous there's a lot of stress in it, and if they're already this way before you even put pressure on, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I work with difficult clients, don't get me wrong. I have people that are very particular, and I'm happy to work with them. But there's a difference if you are being mean, right? Like I just don't want to. And if you don't believe in me and you feel like, or you want to be able to yell at someone. I had a friend and they were like, Lauren, I'm so sorry. We are not going to use you to sell our house because I want to be able to yell at my agent, and you are my friend. I can't yell at you. And I said,
it's fine. I don't want to get yelled at.
Hey, guy, I don't want to be yelled at. I mean, did I want
First of all, is it that bad? I can't imagine getting yelled at. Well,
So, but when you're working with people with a stressful time, sometimes stress comes out differently for different people. And so I think it's important to, to know that. I think that, rarely have I ever been yelled at. But that is something that if I do not like the person or respect the person, I find it hard to work with them. And so that's a personal thing for me. I like most people, so I would say 99% of the population, like that's not a problem for me, because I am pretty happy-go-lucky. I just see the best in people, so that's not typical. But every now and then I run into somebody and I just go, no.
This isn't it. I get you. So we've done our presentation.
Unrealistic in price, like super unrealistic, and they just don't believe what I say. And you have to have some faith that I am coming in as the expert. If you don't have any faith in my expertise, then you're not going to trust me and believe me on the next steps either.
Okay. Now, say you like them. You guys are in the same universe in terms of pricing and everything else, on the same planet even. Do you try to get them to sign right away? Do you hand them a seller's disclosure right away, or do you wait a few days to follow up? Which way do you do it?
Yeah. So I'm doing a preemptive close the whole time. When we list, when you sign, I'm assuming there's going to be a close. The close in this situation is not closing of the house, but the closing of the deal as far as they sign with me. Sometimes we're signing listing agreements that don't begin immediately, that we're planning to do it in 3 months because we do.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Sometimes we're signing, but there's a preemptive, I list with me. You're not ready to list tomorrow. That's fine. No problem. This gives me some assurance that the amount of time and energy I'm putting towards your house, that you're going to work with me. Mm-hmm. If they're hesitant to sign something ahead of time, then I want to explore why.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. If it's just too early in the process, okay, that's okay. Let's just keep talking. If it's, but I have a different level of commitment when you haven't signed with me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so I'm going to put in, and so if they say, no, we're just not ready to sign. Other times, they're going to work with you. It's just a matter of like, hey, yeah, of course, but we need to get those renovations done first. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. But
you don't put that in? You don't, like, 'cause for me, I sign and then I act like I know everything. But like knowing that the photographs and certain things need to be done before I go, I sign, I just extend the length of the contract, knowing that the first couple weeks is going to get eaten up by that process. Mm-hmm. But we are undersigned contract, can kind of small sigh of relief, go, okay, that part's done. Let's focus on the next part. Let's get this stuff taken care of now. Is there a certain point when the place has so many renovations that needs done that's like, we're not doing contract yet because we're 6 months out before we hit the market?
We still do it sometimes, because here's the thing. When you're in your contract class, there's certain things that you need in order for a contract to be fully bound. Mm-hmm. Right? You need consideration. You need the signatures. You need time. You need to know what the price is going to be. You need to know when you're going to go on the market. Like, you need all these things for it to actually be bound. So when people sign and we're 3 months out, or 4 months out, or 6 months out, they're not necessarily signing the same listing paperwork that we actually are going to go on the market with, but it's kind of almost like a gentleman's agreement, or like an agreement to work together. And it's a little bit looser because it doesn't have all the things to be a super bound type contract, but it is enough to give me the confidence that
it's worth investing your time and effort.
I'm giving them, and all of my expertise that I'm giving them is going to end in a sale. Because we do a lot of work up front without getting paid. And so is the letter of the law right there? No. I mean, we do have people that we know that have contracts and things that you sign before they do those renovations. But most people are going to do them on their own. Mm-hmm. And, we had one that there was 6 months ahead of time. Well, we couldn't determine the date because it was 6 months ahead of time. We couldn't determine the price because the market, was going up for 6 months. They did about $30,000 of renovations in their house, and they got about $70,000 more because of it. It was really a great project.
Yes, if you do the right work, yeah.
Yeah, and so it depending on what price point you're at and what you're doing, and they wound up using our stager quite a bit for like picking out fixtures and things. And we did a lot of work together that, there was no question about, are they going to list? We had already started working together. And then every now and then you get somebody that you feel like that you're working really well with, and you get kind of blindsided that they don't want to list with you at the end. And it's rare. It's not something that it typically happens, but it is something that you need to kind of safeguard yourself. And sometimes having that early contract signed, that listing agreement signed, even if it's not, super airtight, just gives you that feeling of like, hey, we had an agreement to work together. It gives you a different level of confidence, I guess.
Okay. Now, say they're not ready to sign right away. How long do you wait to do the follow up? Do you give them a week? Do you give them 3 days?
Oh, well, I would follow up immediately. First of all, depending on who it is, it might be when I go to a listing appointment, I always have a little note card in my bag, like a blank note card, and especially if I don't know the person. It's like if I know the person, the follow up could be a text message, a phone call, email. It can be different. But if it's a new client that I'm trying to get, I almost always write the note right then, and either I don't normally stick it in their mailbox right then, but I mail it that day. So that they receive it, soon. It's kind of creepy to like write it while they're like watching you in your car. I don't do that. But I want to have it with me to remind me, like, hey, this needs to happen immediately.
Yeah,
Thank you so
that
much.
follow
I
up.
appreciate
Yeah.
you opening your home to me. I look forward to us working together. The other situation is what happens if they want to interview multiple agents.
Yeah, that's where I was getting to. Because
Yeah.
if you leave knowing they're going to talk to other people, do you really want to be on them like right away, or that's where
I
I
still do the thank you because I come from a place of gratitude. I want to show my gratitude regardless of the outcome. Right?
That's fair.
And
That's
so
fair.
I come from a place of gratitude. Thank you so much. I appreciate you opening your home. I would love to have the opportunity to work together. I'm just a gratitude. I'm not, I'm just sending gratitude. But if they say, well, Lauren, we really like speaking with you. We think you'd be great. However, we have 2 more agents that we're interviewing. Dun, dun, dun. The scariest words in real estate. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And so here's what I say. This is my script. Great. I think it's wonderful that you're exploring options and that you're figuring out what you need to do and what's the best course for you.
You're going to find out how good I am.
However, once you meet with those people, you are going to have questions and you're not going to remember exactly what I do versus what they do. So since I'm the first person you talk to, what I would ask is that we either have a face-to-face or a phone call before you make your decision. Because after being the first person and after the third person, there's going to be some things that maybe you have questions about or that you wonder how mine compares to theirs. And I'd like to have the opportunity to just connect those dots for you.
Makes sense.
Does that sound fair? And so most of the time people say, yeah, totally. And I do find that when I have a chance of winning it, they always call back and they have a list of questions and they tell me everything the other agent said, and it becomes a really good conversation. When they say yes, but then I don't get the call back, somebody else like has wowed them and like threw them much further. And sometimes there's other influences that you're not aware of.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just connect with somebody when you walk in a room. It can't be like it's one thing to have everything prepared and have a perfect presentation, but sometimes you walk in a room and you and that person are on the same level and you hit that vibe, and it doesn't matter what the paperwork is in front of you because it's just we had a connection. We know we have a connection. This is going to happen. Sometimes it's just serendipitous. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And sometimes you get in the friend zone, just like dating. And this is real. You have to be really careful with this because you need to come in as the professional, and you can't be so desperate for that connection with somebody. You get in the friend zone, but you're not seeing it as the professional.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. I think at the national conference, I heard somebody tell this story just recently, where they connected over fishing, and he was so excited about going fishing, and then he had plans to go fishing together. And the next thing he knew, he saw the house up for sale, and they were supposed to go fishing on Saturday. And he was like, dude, well, you know, like, hey, I thought I was listing your house. He was like, oh, well, we met with another realtor and he wanted to list faster. And so, yeah, we just put it on the market. He was like, but we were going fishing. And he was like, yeah, you know, I'm a fisher. Yeah, of course we're going to go fishing. Like, because he made the friend connection, but not the real estate connection.
Yeah. It's important to maintain professionalism, even though you connect and whatnot. It's cool if you have similar hobbies, similar interests, and stuff like that, and that's great. But in the end, you're there to sell a home. You can become friends after that at the closing table.
Yeah, case in point, me and Jonathan, yeah, we're now friends.
Yeah.
But was it? I hear, you know, we have another Friends reference here. I hear Joey Tribbiani in my head. Oh no, I'm in the friend zone, right? Like
Next time you see me and Lauren, we're gonna have matching gold bracelets.
match the BFF. It'll be like BFF.
Oh yeah, like the one that Joey bought for Chandler.
I'm sure our spouses will love that, Jonathan.
Oh, it'd be perfect. Oh, it didn't go over well in Friends either.
I get hire Cass. Cass will make them for us.
All right.
He'll be thrilled.
Awesome. Well, guys, now you know why Lauren's such a beast in this industry. She kills it at every level. I cannot wait for next week. We got some good ones for you. We're not going to talk about them. But remember, like, subscribe, notification bell, follow, enter to win that Yeti Ready cooler. Yeti Ready. Is there any last closing comments you have for our amazing audience?
Yeah. Go get a listing. Go on a listing presentation. Go do it.
Yeah. Or list with us.
Yeah. Or refer them to us. We pay referral fees.
Yeah. Have a fantastic one, everyone. Take care.
Nice.